Alô galera, aqui é Jorge Israel, eu estou aqui no canal Curta para ter uma tarefa maravilhosa que é entrevistar esse cara genial que é o Geoff Emerick. You were very lucky to be in a very special moment with very special people and especially because you're an engineer and I think this was perhaps the most creative possibility of participating in the concept of a record. And my question is, do you think that after that, this was like the age of golden age for you and the engineer people that could experiment, or and if this language it naturally fade out, or you think we have space to do more of that?
I walked into, well, I say I walked into, I got a job at EMI Studios at the age of 16, maybe 15. I sort of lied about my age, and that was in June of '62. And then 2 days after I started, then I was told about this band from Liverpool that were coming down. They'd already done an artist test, and the younger guys in the studio were saying, oh wow, you know what, wait until you hear this band, right? So anyway, I had to learn the ropes at the studio, and they started to, that was the session they did Love Me Do on. So I said, well, can I just stand in in that session to see how things work, right?
The first song they recorded, right?
Well, no, was it How Do You Do It or something was the first one, but then they wanted to do one of their own songs, which was Love Me Do, which was then recorded the following week because there was only like an extra half an hour left on the session, and they did a couple of passes of it, but it was issued actually. And the difference is that they had a session drummer on one version. I was asked to go to the manager's office, and George Martin was up there, and he said, Geoff, do you want to record the Beatles? Right? And I'm like 19 years old, right? So my heart sank, right? So I'm playing a mind game. There's a little bouncy ball in my head going from yes to no, yes to no, yes to no, and it kept going on no. And then I thought, it kept wanting to go back to yes, right? So it did go to yes, and I had nothing to lose, right? So I went right in at the deep end, and 2 weeks later we started to record the Revolver album. It wasn't called...
Excuse me, this no was because it's too much responsibility? Or,
well, no, because they weren't huge like they are now. It was a band, you know, but they... Anyway, so anyway, the first thing, you know, I felt terrible. I was nauseous, and on the night before that first session when we recorded Tomorrow Never Knows, right?
Wow.
And then, you know, I went in there and we started to record the session, and John Lennon, first of all, I know it started with John. Ringo wanted a different drum sound, because, you know, normally the microphone was up here and the drums are down there, so I lowered the mics towards the drums and altered the microphone technique into the bass drum and got this different drum sound and put it through a Fairchild 660 limiter. And it was like awesome. It had so much impact. So Ringo was won over. Wow. Then John wanted to sound vocally on Tomorrow Never Knows like the Dalai Lama. This is what he actually did, the Dalai Lama singing on a mountaintop 25 miles away from the studio. So, as you know, there's no plugins, right? I've got 2 stereo tape machines, an 8-input mixing console, and an echo chamber. And no real equalization of such to mess around with. And then, you know, I was looking through the control room window, and there was the revolving speaker from the Leslie speaker on the Hammond organ, right? And I thought, well, if we could get into the circuitry and put John's voice in there, it might give us a sound that might do that. And of course it did, and he was like over the moon, right? And then I sort of fought again to get a different bass sound from Paul. And then it developed from there. You know, we had the loops on Tomorrow Never Knows that Paul made at home, and it was just, it completely changed the whole, well, it changed music forever.
And do you think this have some influence from other bands or from films or for their lives or drugs? What do you think it's?
Yeah, I mean, it absolutely did. I mean, many musicians come up to me, especially drummers you know, and bass players or whatever, and say, wow, you know, that gave me the inspiration to become a drummer. Even Phil Collins said that to me once. You know, he did, because of the sound of those drums, because normally it was like, you know, it was wishy-washy, but suddenly it's up in your face.
And this kind of sample that you did in, like in, I don't remember the song now, but that this beat of Ringo is repeating like...
That was on
like
Tomorrow Never Knows though, wasn't it? Right, well,
yes.
which a lot of people, because we had to make a loop on Tomorrow Never Knows, right, that drum track, because of holding the tempo. It had to be spot on every time, and he couldn't hold it for 2 minutes. It would drift. So that, actually that drum beat is almost the same drum beat as Ticket to Ride.